Hello everyone, this is Timothy with Computer Aided Instruction. In this video, I want to talk about CSS a bit more. I want to talk about how we can take one rule where we have a property and a value, and then apply that rule to multiple selectors, all in one line, so we don't have to keep copying and pasting the rule over and over again for different selectors and different lines of code. And we'll also talk about something called CSS Combinators, but we'll get into that a bit later. So here's the website I want to work off of. I'm just giving a shout out to different family members. And here it is in my style editor. So the first thing I want to do is create a style tag and a closing style tag. And this is where we will add our inline CSS. I could have an external style sheet, but I'm just going to use an inline CSS to save time so I don't have to jump back and forth between screens. So let's make my headers on the page gold. So color : gold. Yes, I know ordinarily I say you should use hexadecimal codes for your colors, but I want to make this a short video, so now let's make our paragraph. Let's make the paragraph color blue. Save it, refresh the page, and it works. But this is an extra line of code that we don't need, so let me delete that. And let me just simply type in comma h2, save it, refresh, and it works. So like I was saying, if we have a rule, so we have this property, and we have this value. If we want to repeat this for multiple tags, there's no reason why we should have 5 lines of code. We could do it all within one line of code, simply putting a comma between the different tags that we want affected by this rule. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. Now let me copy and paste this code here. I'm going to put it within a div container. I'm not trying to collapse the code, I just want to separate it. Now let me refresh the page. Now let's say I want this code within this div container not to be gold and blue. Is there anything I can do to stop this code from being affected by the rest of the code on the page, just because it's within the div container? You're probably thinking, well, you can type in div, curly brackets, color green, semicolon, save it, refresh, and that didn't work. I mean, it did work to a certain extent if I just typed in some text here like hello world, saved it, refreshed it, it's green, but it's not the paragraph in the header. So what I need to do here is specify what I want to be green. Div h1, save it, refresh. Now my header is green. My heading 2 isn't green, so let me type in comma h2, and this is not going to work. Saved it, refreshed. Actually, it did work, but it also changed this h2 here, and I only want the h2 within the div tag to be green. So what this is saying is like div h1, that's going to be green, but all h2s are going to be green as well. And anything that comes lower on your CSS section, it's going to overwrite things that came earlier. So that's why it's not gold. So what I want to type here is div h2 as well. Save it, refresh. And now my header 2 outside of the container is gold. My header 2 within the container is green. I can also type in comma div p. Sorry, that's jp. Div p, refresh, and now all of my text within the container is green. So, what else do we want to talk about? Let's talk about combinators a little bit. So, sorry, I didn't even have a greater than sign here, but luckily it still worked. Your browsers can be slightly forgiving if you make mistakes in your code, but they're not very forgiving at all. So let me have another div container within this div container. So let me copy and paste all of this. Let me have a opening div container tag. And then let me have another closing div tag at the bottom. Now let's just say I want only the code within this particular div container to be green, but not this one. There's probably a way to do it, but I can't think of it. What I would do is just create a class. Let me call it something like Familia, which means family in Spanish, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't taken Spanish in a long time, since I was a teenager, which was a long time ago. And let me call the class here and the parent container. Actually, okay, wait. I'm getting ahead of myself. I still want my h1 within the Familia to be green. I want my .familia h2 to be green, and I want my .familia paragraph to be green. But what I don't want is an ordinary div h1, an ordinary div h2, and an ordinary div containers paragraph to be green. So let's make this color red. Is this going to work? It's not. Or is it? Let's see. Nope, it's still green. So what can we do to make sure that the container within the container is not green, it's red? Why isn't this rule overriding this rule? That's a good question. What we can do to ensure that only the heading 1s, the heading 2s, and the paragraphs that are in the first container are green is to indicate with CSS that only the child will be green, but the container within the container, which would be the grandchild, is going to be red. There's a way to do it. There's a way to say, hey, I only want the direct child to be green. You do this by adding a greater than sign before h1, before h2, and before the paragraph. Click save. Now this stuff is red. Your ordinary div container with an h1, h2, and a paragraph is going to be red. That anything that's a child of the Familia container is going to be green, but not the grandchildren. Okay, sorry about that. I was just I almost got myself confused a bit. So use the greater than sign if you want to say, hey, anything that's a direct child of this container is going to be affected by this property and this value, but the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren or any containers within other containers, well, div containers I should specify, are not going to be affected. So any div containers within another container will not be affected by the code here, because we're only saying the child container, not the grandchild container. Anyways, what else do we want to talk about? There's another rule that we can apply by using the CSS Combinators of a plus and the tilde sign. So a plus sign means anything that's adjacent to this container will be affected by this code as well. So let me add some more code to the page. Let's get beyond paragraphs and h2s. Let's add h3, hello world, h3, closing the h3 tag, and then let's have, well, we'll just use a paragraph. How are you? Closing paragraph. Save it. Blue and gold. So let's just say I have a rule where I want my h3s and anything and any paragraphs that are adjacent to it to be a color of, let's just go with pink, I guess. Let's see what happens. The H3 wasn't affected, but the paragraph was affected. So the paragraph next to an H3 is going to be pink. But what if I want the H3 to be pink as well? I would need to put in H3, comma, H3 plus P, pink. This H3 is going to override this one. The H3 plus P is going to make everything adjacent to this H3 pink. But not all paragraphs in this page are next to an H3, so that's why they aren't all pink. But if I did put a comma P, this would make every paragraph pink. That's not inside of the Familia div or the regular div. And again, the tilde is going to be similar to the plus. It's going to say everything that comes after H3 in general is going to be pink. So let me get rid of that. Let me add the tilde sign. Every paragraph after an H3 is going to be pink on the page. So this code is saying every paragraph that comes after an H3 that occurs on the page is going to be pink. Except the ones that are within the div containers, because they have a lot of code already that's saying, hey, this has to be green, this has to be red. And nothing can override it, even if it comes after it. Let's see, just because it's by virtue of it being within a div container. So let's see, what else do we want to talk about? I personally don't use this code very much because it's kind of tricky. I would just, if there was a paragraph, a specific paragraph that I wanted to be pink or some other color, I would just type in dot, give it a custom selector name, like bright color paragraph or something like that. And then I would say color pink, or let's not even do pink anymore. Let's look at it like yellow. And then here, within the body, I could just say class equals bright color paragraph. That's going to make it yellow, which is kind of hard to read against a white background. So there's a discussion about figure ground contrast that needs to happen. Well, anyways, thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful for you. We talked about how you can apply one rule to multiple selectors by using commas between the different selector names. And if you have something that's a child of a div container or even a span class, you can use this rule by just typing in div space h1, or you can have a greater than sign if you want it to be a direct child. And then there's the tilde sign, which will be every paragraph that appears after this selector. It's going to have this property and this value. Or you can have the plus sign, which would be only the paragraph immediately after this tag, this selector, will be affected with this property and value. So hopefully this video was helpful for you. Thank you for watching.